She only wanted to save her sister. He only wanted to escape his family's pressure. Two strangers, one risky deal. A weekend pretending to be the perfect couple, in front of a family that noticed everything. But no one told their hearts. It was supposed to be just a lie. What started with silence and distance turned into touch. What was just an act turned into desire. But time goes on, and the truth comes knocking. She did it out of desperation. He helped her in secret. And when feelings finally rose to the surface, it was already too late. They drifted apart. But fate still had something to say. Hit play now, because this story will move you from beginning to end and show you that real love doesn't always start the right way, but it always finds a way back. If this story touches your heart, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like. It truly helps us keep sharing stories that move and transform. And tell us in the comments, where are you listening from? Olivia Bennet wasn't counting time by the clock on the wall, but by the sound of knives clinking in the kitchen and the almost choreographed rhythm of orders flying out from the counter. It was the 5th tray she had balanced just in that jab, and there were still 2 more hours left in her shift. The artificial light inside the Willow Diner felt harsher that night, or maybe it was just the exhaustion pressing on her temples. Her palms ached, her feet were burning inside her, worn-out sneakers, but she kept going. Because stopping for Olivia wasn't an option. The diner, with its faded red booths and the constant smell of reheated coffee, felt like her second home, and like any home, it had its ghosts. One of them was the phone buzzing in her apron pocket for the 3rd time that night. She already knew who it was, the hospital, another bill. Another painful reminder that her little sister, Sophia, needed a treatment the healthcare system wouldn't cover, and that she was trying to afford on her own. Sophia was all she had left from the family that once felt whole. Olivia still remembered the way her sister used to smile before the illness started draining her energy. Now, even at just 15, Sophia spent more time around needles and monitors than with books or games. And Olivia? She was a waitress, an improvised nurse, a big sister, and lately, a woman on the edge of burnout. She wiped down a table in autopilot, trying to push away the growing weight in her chest. "Table 15, one of the cooks shouted. She took a deep breath, put on her practiced smile, and headed over. The customer, dressed in an expensive suit, bored expression, phone in hand, didn't even lift his eyes when she approached. He seemed like the kind of man who knew the world revolved around him, and maybe, in his case, it actually did. "Good evening, sir. Do you know what you'd like to order?" "I'm not sure yet," he replied, voice low but firm, almost impatient. His accent was subtle, his tone too confident for an ordinary customer. He slid the menu aside with disinterest and kept typing. Olivia tried to stay composed, but something about him rubbed her the wrong way. It wasn't just arrogance. It was the feeling that he saw everyone there as background characters in a show where he was the star. And tonight, with exhaustion cutting through her soul, she had no patience to play along. "All right, I'll come back in a few minutes." Before she could walk away, his phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor. Instinctively, she bent down to pick it up. At that moment, their eyes met. She saw surprise, he saw intensity, and for a second, the entire diner seemed to disappear around them. "Thank you," he said, taking the phone from her with a brief touch of her fingers. It was quick, but something lingered in the air, something neither of them could explain. Olivia returned to the counter, shaken. It wasn't just the touch, it was the way he looked at her, as if he recognized something. But that made no sense. She was just a waitress trying to save her sister. And him? Well, he was clearly from another world. Minutes later, the same man called for the manager. Olivia, nervous, thought she'd done something wrong, but as she approached, she heard, "I want to speak with her, in private." The manager, visibly uneasy, nodded. Olivia walked over with firm steps, doing her best to hold her dignity. What did he want? To complain? Humiliate her? Make some kind of indecent proposal? But what he said was the exact opposite of what she expected. "My name is Liam Carter," he said directly, "and I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for one weekend." Her eyes widened. Silence. That same strange feeling from earlier, like the world had paused just to let that sentence land. What? A temporary lie. A role. You have presence, you're beautiful, well-spoken, and desperate. I know what a cornered look looks like. Olivia felt exposed and offended. How would you know that? He gave a half smile. I don't. But I'm taking a guess, and I'm willing to pay enough to cover whatever's eating away at you. She wanted to say no. She wanted to walk away. But at that exact moment, her phone buzzed again. And right there, in the middle of the loud chaos of clattering plates, forks, and rushed voices, the offer echoed in her mind like bait far too tempting to ignore. Liam Carter wasn't the kind of man people overlooked, and it wasn't just because of the tailored suits or the perfectly combed back hair. It was the way he entered a room, like he belonged there all along, as if everything around him had been set up just to welcome him. The kind of presence that made even silence feel deliberate. The morning after he made the offer at the diner, Liam sat on a dark wooden bench outside the Willow Diner, sunglasses on, arms crossed, and a folded piece of paper with Olivia's number in the inside pocket of his blazer. He was waiting, and he hated waiting. But there was something about Olivia, something raw and real, that made him willing to break his own rules. When she walked out through the diner's side door, her hair pulled up in a messy bun and dark circles under her eyes, betraying a rough night, Liam stood up with his usual grace. Olivia stopped a few steps away, arms crossed, as if shielding herself from the wind, or the invisible danger that man seemed to represent. I thought I dreamed your ridiculous proposal, she said, staring at him. Good morning to you. Too, he replied, taking off his sunglasses and revealing eyes that held challenge. And something else, something almost curious, Olivia sighed. So, let me guess, you brought a printed contract too? Not yet, he said with a faint smile, but I brought coffee, 2 sugars, no milk. Did I get it right? She hesitated, just for a second. Creepily accurate. Liam held out the paper cup like it was a symbolic truce. Olivia took it, still guarded. They sat side by side on the same bench. The city rushed by in front of them, cars, horns, people in a hurry, but in that moment time seemed to pause between sips and silences. Do you always approach women like this? She asked, looking straight ahead. No. Only when they pick up my phone from the ground like they're defusing a grenade. She let out a short laugh, surprised, and for the first time in a long time, that laugh felt real. Liam glanced at her from the corner of his eye. There was weariness in her face, yes, but also strength, a kind of strength he didn't know how to name. Why me? She asked. I mean, you probably know actresses, models, women trained to lie with charm. Exactly, they lie too well, and I don't need a perfect lie. I need a truth that just looks like one. Olivia looked at him. That was almost poetic. I'm almost a failed poet, he said, with a crooked smile. Silence returned, but this time it was comfortable, like a light blanket on a cold morning. Liam stood and offered his hand. Shall we? To where? Dress shopping. You'll need one for my cousin's wedding. And shoes. And maybe a believable story about how we met. She stood still for a moment, staring at his hand. It was more than a gesture. It was a crossroad, and she knew it. She knew that touching that hand could change everything, but then she remembered Sophia, and the last call from the hospital, and how tired she was of running in place. She took his hand. New York that day looked like a movie set waiting for a love story that hadn't been written yet. Liam took her to a quiet boutique on the Upper East Side, where the staff treated her like royalty. Olivia, used to diner uniforms and tying her hair with pens, suddenly found herself surrounded by mirrors, soft fabrics, warm lights, and whispered compliments. She tried on 3 dresses before Liam looked up from his phone and said, "The 4th one. The red one, that's you." "You think so?" she asked, uncomfortable with the side slit and the neckline. "I'm sure." She looked at herself in the mirror. It felt strange. It was bold. It was someone else, but at the same time it was like seeing something that had always been there, hidden behind overdue bills and sleepless nights. Outside, Liam was waiting with a private driver. The car slid through the city while they made up a story. A fake meet-cute at an art gallery, a spilled glass of wine on her dress. They laughed, made up lines, practiced glances, and somewhere between the scenes, they began to forget it was all just pretend. "Is your world always like this?" Olivia asked, watching the city through the closed window. "Like what?" "Fast, shiny, convenient." Liam took a moment to respond. "Shiny, yes. Convenient sometimes, but too fast to really feel anything. Most of the time." She turned. To him, surprised by the honesty. He didn't look away. In that moment, a crack appeared in the polished surface of the confident man, a glimpse of something deeper. Maybe a story he didn't share with anyone. The car stopped in front of a glass building. A small private hall waited for them. Olivia was about to be introduced to one of Liam's uncles, a sort of rehearsal for the weekend ahead, but before she stepped out, Liam gently touched her wrist. Lightly, hesitantly. "One last thing," he said. "This might be pretend, a deal. But if anyone asks, you like me." She gave him a half smile. "If anyone asks, I'll look like I do." And she stepped out of the car, not knowing that by the end of that weekend, her eyes would end up saying far more than she'd ever dare to admit. The invitation sounded simple: one weekend, a graceful lie, a temporary role. But for Olivia Bennett, it felt like making a deal with the impossible. That same afternoon, after the first round of shopping and fake smiles that no longer felt quite so fake, Liam took her to a small, tucked-away cafe with large windows that let the soft afternoon light wash over the dark wood counter. The scent of freshly roasted coffee and warm bread filled the air, and for a moment, Olivia felt like she could finally breathe, for the first time in what felt like forever. "The ceremony is this Saturday," Liam said, resting his elbows on the table and lacing his fingers in front of his face. "It's at my family's vineyard in Sonoma. They're expecting me to show up with someone. My cousin's getting married, and there's a lot of pressure around my love life. As always." Olivia raised an eyebrow and leaned forward. "And why is that such a big deal? You're rich, attractive, you own a wine empire. Getting a date shouldn't be a problem. I still don't get why you're sitting here with me." "Exactly because of that," he replied, his voice low, and filled with a sincerity that caught her off guard. "Because every woman seen next to me ends up in the headlines. Because my mother has tried setting me up with 2 actresses and a senator's daughter. And because you don't belong to that world." "Wow, thanks," she said, pretending to be offended. "I love being the out-of-the-box option." Liam smiled. "I want someone who doesn't have an agenda, someone who doesn't need to pretend she loves me, just that she can barely tolerate me." "That's a strange compliment. It's an honest one." She crossed her arms. Her mind was spinning with questions, but one stood out above the rest. "So how much are you paying for this little act?" Liam didn't flinch. He pulled a black credit card from his wallet and slid it across the table like it was just another business transaction. "With this limit, you can pay for your sister's treatment for at least 6 months. That's not including travel, clothing, or any discomfort that might need compensating." The silence between them stretched. Olivia looked at the card, then at him. Then she looked away. Her eyes settled on the cafe window, where a little girl was stacking toast on her plate while her parents laughed. For a moment, she saw herself there. Or rather, she saw Sophia, healthy, carefree, smiling again. "Did you look into my life?" she asked softly, still staring at the scene outside. "No. But I know what it looks like when someone's at the edge. And yours. Screams for help, even when you're smiling." She swallowed hard. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever noticed. "Why are you being so generous?" Liam took his time before answering. His expression softened. "Because despite everything, I know what it's like to lose someone, and I'd do anything to keep that from happening to someone else." Olivia closed her eyes for a second. Part of her wanted to say no, to hold on to her pride, to stay grounded, to walk away with her dignity untouched. But another part, the part that woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, wondering how she'd pay the next hospital bill, that part was screaming, yes. She took a deep breath. "All right. Tell me what I need to know, Liam. Leaned back as if he'd just won a silent battle. We'll build a story. You're a graphic designer. We met at an art gallery in Brooklyn. You spilled red wine on my very expensive French suit, and I was instantly captivated. We spent the night talking about the relationship between color and emotion. We exchanged numbers, started seeing each other, and now, Auntie, we're together. Simple as that. Graphic designer? Olivia smiled, amused. At least you gave me a classy job. Can I secretly be disillusioned with the advertising industry? As long as you remember my great-aunt's name, yes, Carmen. Carmen Carter, the matriarch, the feared one, the respected one. They laughed together. And for a moment it didn't feel like they were sealing a deal. It felt like they were simply getting to know each other. Then Liam pulled a leather envelope from his briefcase. Inside was a contract. Simple, straightforward, but meticulously written. Olivia read every line carefully. Confidentiality clauses, full payment to be made at the end of the weekend, and one unexpected condition: no physical contact would be required, except what was necessary to make the act believable. So, I don't have to kiss you? She asked, half relieved, half teasing. No, Liam replied with a subtle smirk, but if it happens, I hope it's spontaneous. Forced lies tend to fall apart under close inspection. Olivia signed. Her hands were shaking, but her gaze was steady. The clock read 5:42 p.m. when she handed the contract back, and at that exact moment, without knowing it, she had changed the course of her own story. Her phone buzzed again. It was the hospital. This time she answered with one weight lifted, but another one just beginning. Hello? Yes, I understand. I'll be there tomorrow. And when she hung up, Liam was watching her in silence. His eyes weren't the same anymore. Neither were hers. They stood up side by side, but as they walked toward the exit, one thought kept echoing in Olivia's mind. A warning she couldn't quite interpret. What if something that started as a lie didn't want to end that way anymore? Their first stop was an upscale building on the Upper West Side, an apartment that looked like it belonged on the cover of an architecture magazine. Every detail screamed sophisticated minimalism: polished concrete floors, neutral-toned furniture, and abstract paintings perfectly aligned on the walls. Olivia felt out of place the moment she stepped inside, but Liam, always one step ahead, had already prepared a space for her, quite literally. "This is the guest room," he said, opening the door. "It'll be your base until we fly out tomorrow morning." She peeked inside. A king-size bed, Egyptian cotton sheets, a panoramic view of Manhattan, and silence. A comfortable silence, but deafening for someone used to the cramped chaos of a room shared with pill bottles and unpaid bills. "You do realize how surreal all of this feels to me?" she asked, still standing at the door. "I do. That's exactly why I chose you, because you don't pretend to be part of this world." Liam let her soak in the space for a few minutes before bringing her back to reality. He had a folder filled with family photos, handwritten notes, and even short videos showing interactions among the Carters. He wanted Olivia to absorb every detail like it was part of her own DNA. Aunt Carmen has a restrained laugh, but her eyes give everything away. Uncle Charles will test you, and my cousin Vanessa, the bride, will pretend to be friendly while fishing for subtle clues. He paused. "Oh, and watch out for my mother. Margaret is intense." Olivia laughed, trying to keep up with the flood of names and connections. It felt like rehearsing for a role that didn't exist, on a stage with no script. But strangely, she was adapting. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she had to make this work, for Sophia, for herself, and maybe for something else. Something undefined that grew every time Liam looked at her a little too long. The next morning, they flew together on a private jet to California. Olivia had never been on a plane that served champagne before takeoff. She felt out of place, yes, but also strangely safe. During the flight, they rehearsed their fake story: an art gallery in Williamsburg, a wine-spilling accident, a long conversation about Klimt's paintings that lasted late into the night. They came up with pet names and little details only real couples would have, like the song she supposedly hated, but he played just to tease her. "And if someone asks about our first kiss?" Olivia asked, turning to him in her white leather seat. "Say it was in the rain," he answered without hesitation. "Are you always this cinematic?" "Only when I feel cornered," she smiled, not realizing that the teasing tone between them had started to give way to something more genuine. Their laughter came easier now. The pauses between sentences carried something heavier than a lie could hold for long. When they landed in Sonoma, Olivia felt the weight of it all. The Carter family vineyard was a hidden paradise among green hills, with rows of vines lined up like silent soldiers, and a mansion with tall windows that looked like it belonged in a period film. The main house was surrounded by blooming gardens, and tables being set for the big event. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a social coronation. "Ready?" Liam asked as they stepped out of the car. She nodded, adjusting the navy blue dress she had picked at the boutique. Nothing too flashy, but elegant enough to blend in. He offered his arm, and she took it, as if they'd been doing this for years. In the first hour, Olivia met 3 uncles, 2 cousins, a dog named Monroe, and a great aunt who called her Brooklyn Blossom. And surprisingly, she was doing well. She knew how to smile just enough, fake familiarity with wine labels, and even invented a weekend watercolor hobby. But everything changed when she met Carmen Carter, the family matriarch. "So, you're the one," Carmen said, sizing Olivia. Up, holding a glass of Prosecco and wearing a pearl necklace that seemed heavier than common sense. "That's me," Olivia replied, holding her gaze with a courage she didn't know she had. "You've got posture," Carmen noted, "and eyes that don't impress easily. That's good. Men like Liam need women who don't tremble at the sight of power." It was, without a doubt, the quietest and most effective seal of approval Olivia could have received. Liam, just a few. Steps away, watched the whole scene, and for the first time in a long time he felt proud of someone, without needing to say a word. That night, during the garden dinner, they were invited to raise a toast. Soft music played in the background. Lights hung between the trees, and the air felt like it belonged in a fairy tale. Olivia, already a little dizzy from all the pretending, leaned toward Liam and whispered, "This is going too well." "That scares me." "Relax," he said. "I'm right here." And that's when it happened. Glasses lifted, applause echoed, and in a completely unscripted move, Liam leaned in and kissed her. Not a quick peck, not a rehearsed gesture, but a kiss filled with hesitation and intensity, like even he didn't know where it began, or where it was supposed to end. "Went for him." They pulled away, the world kept spinning, with music, laughter, and clinking glasses. But inside Olivia everything had shifted. The lie now tasted oddly like the truth. And the look in Liam's eyes, right after the kiss, said he wasn't so sure anymore what was pretend and what was desire. The entrance to the vineyard was adorned with arches of wildflowers, golden lights woven through tree branches, and white linen curtains swaying gently in the breeze. It looked like something out of a dream, but to Olivia, it felt like stepping onto a stage built for someone else. She stepped out of the car beside Liam, eyes wide, trying to take in every detail, every face, every whisper that might, or might not, be about her. The new dress fit her perfectly, but still felt unfamiliar. As if even the fabric knew she didn't belong in that world. Liam held her hand firmly. It wasn't a light touch, nor was it overbearing. It was a silent anchor, and Olivia, as prepared as she thought she was, felt her heart race with every step deeper into the Carter universe. "Remember," he whispered in her ear as they walked. "Through the welcome cocktail area, you've known me for 4 months. Our first date was at a charity art event, and your favorite dessert is tiramisu." "Tiramisu," she whispered back, raising an eyebrow. "It was the dessert at the gallery. We're stuck with it now." Olivia let out a soft laugh. That unexpected sound helped ease the knot that had been sitting in her stomach since they arrived. The stares began almost immediately. Relatives, family friends, local business people, all trying to figure out who the woman beside Liam Carter was, the reserved heir who always avoided romantic commitments. There was curiosity in the women's eyes, judgment in some of the men's, and pure anticipation in the gaze of Carmen Carter, seated in an ornate iron chair in the garden corner, holding a glass of Prosecco and sitting straight like she was. Watching a play, Olivia greeted her with a polite smile and a subtle nod. Carmen responded with a nearly imperceptible nod and the faintest raise of an eyebrow. Silent approval had yet to be earned. Then came the rest of the family. Lively, Aunt Rose, who wouldn't stop asking about that gallery where it all began. Cousin Daniel, clearly trying to figure out if Olivia was just another fling, and the bride herself, Vanessa, who offered a plastic smile and a calculated hug. "It's such a pleasure to finally meet you, Olivia," Vanessa said, her hands lightly resting on Olivia's arms in fake intimacy. "Liam said so little about you, which is just like him, but you're even more beautiful in person, seriously. Thank you, and you look stunning. Congratulations on the wedding. The place is magical. It really is, isn't it?" Vanessa twirled slightly on her heels, showing off the pearly white dress she was already rehearsing in. "By the way, what is it you do again?" "Graphic design," Olivia answered smoothly. "Currently freelancing, focused on brand identity." Vanessa squinted as if processing the answer. Olivia kept smiling, but inside she felt each word like a tiny test, each question a trap, each answer a tightrope walk between keeping the lie alive and letting the truth slip. The evening moved forward with polite conversations, toasts, introductions and subtle rehearsals of affection between Olivia and Liam. He touched her gently on the back, offered her glasses of wine, whispered small reminders, the kind of details someone who knew her eyes too well might notice. But the turning point of the night came during the bride's father's speech. After thanking the guests and praising the couple, he announced a family tradition to bless relationships. Every pair present was to raise a toast and seal the moment with a kiss. Liam turned to Olivia immediately, and for the first time, she saw hesitation in his eyes. This wasn't just part of the act anymore. Something was cracking beneath the surface, something even he, so used to being in control, couldn't suppress. "Can we improvise?" he asked, almost in a whisper. "We can," she replied firmly, even though her heart was beating a wild, off-key rhythm inside her chest. And so, in front of everyone, beneath the light strung between the trees and the watchful eyes of the Carters, Liam gently cupped Olivia's face and kissed her. It wasn't a quick peck, it wasn't part of the performance. It was a kiss filled with tension, with unspoken words, with feelings no one had given permission to exist. Seconds stretched. The world around them faded, and Olivia felt something she couldn't name, but it etched itself into her skin, her chest, her closed eyes that no longer wanted to open. When the kiss ended, applause followed. Glasses clinked, but to her the sound felt distant, muffled, by something shifting deep inside her, like something had been turned off until turned on. Liam looked at her a second longer than he needed to, and she looked away. That night, alone in the guest room, Olivia sat at the edge of the bed, still fully dressed, lipstick slightly smudged, heart pounding out of rhythm. It wasn't just the lie that unsettled her anymore. It was what had started, growing underneath it, and as she stared out at the vineyard lights through the window, one question echoed in her mind. Did he feel it too? The kiss had ended hours ago, but it still lingered in the air like a scent that refused to fade. Olivia was trying to sleep, but the pillow felt too hard, or maybe it was the memory of Liam's lips that made everything uncomfortable. She turned from side to side, and every movement seemed to echo the same question. Was that part of the act? Or was it real? Her fingers brushed her lips without her noticing. It wasn't about technique. It wasn't about playing a scene well. It was about the way he looked at her afterward. The silence between them hadn't been empty. It was full, and now that weight pressed on every beat of her heart. The next morning, the vineyard felt light, sunny, almost festive. Olivia wandered the mansion's hallways in search of coffee, and maybe a piece of herself. She was still wearing one of Liam's oversized t-shirts from the night before, faded with the logo of a French winery she'd never even heard of. It felt ironic, sleeping now with elite initials stitched into her sleeves. In the back garden, she found Liam. He had his back turned, hands in his pockets, eyes lost in the vineyard rows. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly messy, and a look she hadn't seen on him before. He looked human. "Good morning," she said, her voice lower than she intended. Liam turned slowly. "Did you sleep well?" "Not really, you." "Me?" He sighed. "Not much either. Too much noise up here," he said, tapping his temple. They stood there for a moment. No script, no rehearsal, just two strangers who, for some reason, had touched something in each other that no lie had planned for. "About last night," Olivia began. "It was part of the act," he said, too quickly. She nodded, swallowing hard. But something in his face contradicted the words. A slight clench of the jaw. A look that lingered too long. "Of course." "Great performance, Mr. Carter," she replied, trying to laugh, but the laugh came out wrong, because deep down, it hurt. The day continued with family lunches, wedding rehearsals, and polite conversations that demanded almost theatrical energy from Olivia. But Liam was different. More attentive, more present, and somehow more distant too. Like he was fighting something he could no longer hide. That afternoon they were invited to join the bride and groom for a casual photo session, photographers, soft lighting, and forced poses. Olivia felt like a fraud in front of the camera, but all it took was a gentle touch on her waist or a teasing whisper in her ear from Liam, and her laughter became real. Because in the middle of pretending, truth was leaking through the cracks like sunlight through shutters. "You two are so natural together," said the photographer. "It really looks like there's something real here." Olivia smiled politely, but inside, those words echoed like a warning. Later, as she got ready for the formal dinner, Olivia sat alone in her room for a few quiet minutes. Staring into the mirror, she studied her reflection like she was trying to decode a new version of herself. The woman looking back was more confident, more beautiful, but also more vulnerable, because she knew something was starting to grow. And that wasn't part of the agreement. Liam appeared in the doorway, his tie slightly crooked and his eyes more tired than usual. "I need help," he said, handing her the silk tie. "I'm good with numbers. Ties still win." Olivia stood slowly and stepped closer. With each step the air felt thicker. As she adjusted the tie around his neck, she felt the warmth of his skin, the faint scent of woodsy cologne with a citrus note, and the silence, a silence full of unsaid things. "About last night," he started again. "You already said it was acting. No need to repeat it." He looked her in the eyes, and she knew. He wanted to say something else, but he swallowed it. "Thank you," he murmured once the tie was done. "You're welcome." And then he did something unexpected. He touched her hand. Quickly, lightly, but real, as if testing whether he could still feel something that wasn't calculated. At dinner they sat side by side as usual, but their glances had changed. It wasn't just about keeping up the act anymore. It was about hiding the truth underneath it. When dessert arrived, yes, tiramisu, Olivia laughed softly and Liam joined her. "Well, that's a nice coincidence," she said. "Or maybe life's got more of a sense of humor than we think." She looked at him, and for a moment she wanted it all to be true. But her mind screamed it's not. Her heart, however, was starting not to care. When they returned to their rooms, they said goodnight at the door like a polite couple. But Olivia lingered. She felt that if she stepped inside, something would be lost forever. But there was no kiss, no words, just a look and a question that hung between them like mist. What happens when the lie starts to hurt less than the truth you can't have? It poured through the tall mansion windows, as if trying to force him to face what he'd spent all night avoiding, the fact that something had changed. He dressed in silence, unhurried. The light grey suit hung neatly on its hanger, flawless, really. And maybe that's why it felt wrong, because on the inside Liam was far from flawless. The kiss, the looks, the touches, everything was becoming too confusing, too intense, too real. Olivia, on the other hand, carried the same polished smile as always. She greeted everyone at breakfast with the ease of a seasoned actress, but inside she was trembling too. After what had happened between them, even casual conversation with Liam felt like a tightrope, each word a delicate dance between what was still allowed and what her heart was already begging for in silence. And then, during the final preparations, For the ceremony, everything started to unravel. While Olivia was touching up her makeup in the upstairs bathroom, her phone rang. It was Madison, her best friend. She answered softly with the door closed. "Are you alive?" Madison teased. "I need updates. Have you kissed the millionaire yet? Is he as charming as he looks?" "Maddie, now's not the time." Olivia whispered, laughing nervously. "Everything's a mess. I don't even know where the agreement ends and something else begins." "Something else, like feelings?" "Olivia, you did this for Sophia. Don't forget that." That's when Liam, without warning, opened the door to the room adjacent to the bathroom and heard it. Just fragments, but enough. "You did this for Sophia." He stood still, as if the world had frozen. He didn't slam the door. He didn't say a word. He just stepped back slowly and closed it. Like he needed space to understand what he was really feeling. Liam had always suspected Olivia was hiding something, but hearing her say it, hearing her confirm it, felt like a punch to the gut. As he walked down the stairs, he remembered the way she looked at him, their late-night talks, her laugh against his shoulder, the kiss. It all tasted different now, tainted with doubt. Was she getting close to him for him, or just out of need? In the vineyard garden, among freshly watered flowers and rows of chairs being arranged, Olivia came down shortly after. Unaware that Liam's world had already shifted, she found him near the vines, tense, his eyes hard. "Is everything okay?" she asked as she approached. "You should have told me," he said quietly but firmly, "from the start." Olivia froze. "Liam, your sister's surgery, the bills. You agreeing to all this because you were desperate. I get it, Olivia. What I don't get is why you had to hide it. I was the one who made the offer, and even then, you kept it from me." She felt stripped bare, fragile, exposed. "I didn't know how to say it. I didn't want you to think that I was using you. Weren't you?" The question came sharp. But his eyes were begging for a no that could make everything right again. Olivia took a deep breath. "At first, yes. I said yes because of Sophia. But after that, I stayed. Because you made me feel things I'd forgotten I could feel." Liam looked away. His shoulders, usually so straight, now seemed tired. "It's hard to tell what's real and what's been paid for, Olivia. I'm not good at this. I never have been." "And you think I am?" She shot back, her voice cracking. "I got lost in all of this too. I keep asking myself if I'm here because of the lie, or in spite of it." They stood in silence. The only sounds were the rustling leaves and the quiet shuffle of people setting up the altar. I needed you to trust me," Liam said at last, "and I needed you not to be just another offer that comes with a hidden price tag." They looked at each other, and in that look there was everything: anger, disappointment, desire, fear, and no. Answers. That day they played their roles at the wedding with the same practiced smiles. They posed for pictures, chatted with guests, even exchanged kind words with the bride. But their eyes no longer found each other so easily. After the reception, Olivia retreated early. The night was cold and the bed felt bigger than it needed to be. She felt a hollow ache she couldn't name, as if she'd lost something that wasn't even hers yet. Liam, meanwhile, stayed in the garden for hours, speaking little, drinking wine slowly, his gaze lost somewhere between the vineyard and the stars. What once connected them had cracked. But somehow, maybe it was in that break that the truth had finally started to grow. New York felt colder when Olivia returned. Maybe it was the crisp autumn wind cutting through the streets, or maybe it was the silence that followed her now. A silence unlike the one she knew before Liam. A silence that wasn't the absence of sound, but the absence of him. At the Willow Diner, everything was exactly as she had left it. The slightly torn red booths, the smell of grease mixed with fresh coffee, the door chimes ringing every time someone rushed in. But inside her, nothing was. The same. "Well, look who's back from the fairy tale," joked Jenna, her shift partner, as Olivia tied on her apron. Olivia gave a faint smile. She didn't have the strength to make up an excuse. "Not today." "How was it?" Jenna pressed while pouring coffee into mugs. It was what it needed to be, Olivia replied simply, but the words didn't explain the tightness in her chest nor the way she kept avoiding her phone. Liam hadn't called, hadn't texted, no explanation, no apology. No reason for the silence that now stood between them like a wall, and yet Olivia saw him everywhere. In the man in a blazer grabbing coffee, in the customer ordering red wine at 10 in the morning, in the echo of words that still lived inside her. In the first few days, she tried to convince herself this was for the best, that world was never meant for her, that the whole thing had just been a beautifully acted lie. But at night the pillow only knew how to whisper his name. Even Sophia, fragile, still recovering, could feel the sadness in her sister. "You liked him, didn't you?" she asked softly one evening, as Olivia gently changed the dressings on her thin arms. "I don't know, Soph," Olivia said, dabbing the cotton with extra care. Maybe more than I should have. Sometimes people come into our lives just to remind us we still feel," Sophia whispered. Olivia kissed her sister's forehead and held back tears. How could a 15-year-old be so wise while she, the one trying so hard to stay strong, felt like she was falling apart inside? Across the city, Liam Carter wasn't doing much better. He spent his days shut in his office, ignoring event invitations, cancelling investor meetings. His assistant James even tried stepping in. "You're just going to stay locked up forever? Let everything fall apart out of pride?" Liam only turned toward the window. The city pulsed beyond the glass, but he no longer felt like keeping up with it. In the days that followed, he tried reaching out, in his own way. On Tuesday, Olivia found a bouquet of white peonies on the diner counter. No note, no name, but she knew. On Thursday, a wine delivery included an envelope with a thank you card inside. One handwritten line: "You were the best lie of my life, and the most painful truth." Olivia tucked the card into her wallet, but she didn't reply. The following week, Liam showed up, quietly. He sat in a corner of the diner, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, as if he wanted to watch without being seen. He ordered coffee, just coffee, and stayed there watching Olivia work her tables with the same tired smile. She saw him, pretended not to, but inside, every step he took echoed like a living memory. After that, he didn't return. She thought it would bring relief, but it hurt. Then, on a cold Friday evening, as Olivia was leaving the diner after a long shift, she found a letter tucked beneath the strap of her bicycle. She knew the handwriting. The paper smelled like him. "I wish I could go back to that kiss and do it again, but this time, no audience. No lie, no contract. If I could ask for a second chance, not for the performance, but for everything we didn't get the time to live, would you say yes?" She read it 3 times, then tucked it away. She didn't answer, because it still hurt, because she still felt. But that night, as she lay in bed, she dreamed of him. And in the dream, there was no guilt, just cheap wine, a small couch, and 2 people laughing at something simple. What would it be like if there were no more lies? What would it be like if he showed up? It was the middle of the night when the phone rang. The vibration on the nightstand felt like an earthquake in the darkroom. Olivia answered before the second ring, her heart already out of rhythm. "This is the pediatric wing at St. Mary's. Your sister had a sudden decline. We're working to stabilize her, but she's being moved to the ICU. The doctor's voice was calm, but his words cut like blades. Olivia didn't think, she just moved. Threw on the first hoodie she found, slipped into her sneakers without tying them, and ran through Manhattan's freezing streets like she was fleeing a nightmare that refused to end. In the cab, her hands shook so badly she could barely type. But with the impulse of someone who no longer knew where else to turn, she searched for one name, just one. Liam. She's not well. Really not well. I didn't know who else to call. The message was short. No punctuation, no filter. Sent at 3:12 a.m. On the way to the hospital, Olivia cried in silence. Cried for Sophia. Cried for herself. Cried for being alone in a moment when every part of her longed for comfort. And despite everything she tried to deny, a part of her still hoped he'd come. When she arrived at the hospital, she ran. To the front desk. Sophia was already being treated. Olivia clung to the nurse's updates like driftwood in a stormy sea. And then she heard it. Olivia. She turned. Liam was there. Grey t-shirt, dark hoodie, wind-tossed hair, and eyes. Red. He looked tired but steady. And in that moment, that was everything. She didn't say a word. She just fell into his arms. And he held her like that embrace was the only thing in the world that still made sense. "You came," she murmured, her voice muffled between sobs. "You called me," he replied simply, as if that explained everything, and in a way, it did. They spent hours sitting in silence on a stiff bench in the ICU hallway, the smell of antiseptic thick in the air, time dragging like punishment. Liam didn't ask questions. He just stayed. And when Olivia eventually dozed off with her, head resting on his shoulder, exhausted from fear and grief, he didn't move. He stayed still, grounded. Early that morning, the doctor returned. The surgery was successful. She responded better than we expected. She's sedated, but for now she's out of danger. Olivia broke down again, but this time with relief. "Surgery?" she asked. "What surgery? No one told me about surgery." The doctor frowned, slightly confused, but the procedure was authorized and paid for days ago. "Mr. Carter handled everything. I assumed you knew." The words hit like lightning in the sterile white hallway. Olivia turned to Liam, who now avoided her eyes. "Was it you?" He didn't answer immediately. He just took a breath and said, "I knew something like this could happen, and I wouldn't be able to sleep knowing there was something I could have done, and didn't." "Without telling me," she whispered, as if part of her didn't want to hear the answer. "Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to. Forgive me for it. I just wanted to do what was right, even if it didn't bring me back to you." She stayed silent. Fury and gratitude fought inside her like two wounded animals. "You helped me." "Why?" Liam finally looked into her eyes. "Because I love you, Olivia." 5 seconds of pure silence. Not even the ICU monitors seemed to beep. Only her eyes wide open, trying to absorb it. And I knew that if I said it before, soon, maybe you wouldn't believe me. Maybe you'd think it was part of the act. But now, here, with no contract, no party, no audience, it's just this. I love you, and I'd do it all again, even if you don't stay. Olivia felt the world spin, the cold hospital walls, the distant beeping, the flood of memories, all blurred inside her. But one thing was clear. Liam had come back. Not with flowers, not with promises. He came back with presence, with truth. And yet, she still wasn't ready. "I need time," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to take care of her. I need to take care of me." Liam nodded, a quiet, sad smile forming on his lips. "I know. I just needed you to know." And then, just like that, he left. Later that day, Olivia found a note tucked inside her coat pocket, left behind without a word. "Even if you never come back, thank you for showing me what it feels like to truly feel." Olivia pressed the note to her chest, and deep down, somewhere beneath the grief and confusion, she already knew. This story wasn't over yet. The hospital was no longer a battlefield. Sophia slept peacefully, the IV dripping slowly, her breathing steady, her face calm in a way Olivia hadn't seen in a long time. But inside Olivia, the storm still raged. Ever since Liam left that morning, she hadn't been able to sleep. His words echoed like an insistent whisper. "I love you even if you don't stay." But how could she believe in that love? How do you trust a feeling born from a lie, nurtured on a stage, and now trying to bloom on shaky ground? 2 days later, with Sophia out of danger and back in a regular room, Olivia took the subway downtown. She didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't give herself time to overthink. She only knew one thing. She had to face Liam before. Pride made her run again. When she reached the front of his building, she hesitated. The intercom glowed under the fading afternoon light. Her finger hovered over the button. Then she pressed it. "Yes." His voice. Still steady. still familiar. "It's me," a pause. Then the door buzzed open. In the elevator, her heart thudded so hard it felt like it might leap out of her chest. When the apartment door opened, Liam stood there, black t-shirt, sweatpants, and the same eyes as always, the ones that hid too much and showed even more. "Hey," he said, unsure if he was allowed to smile. "Hey." She stepped inside without asking, and he stepped back, giving her space. The apartment was too clean, like it had been scrubbed by someone desperately trying to organize their own mind. An open bottle of wine on the counter gave away what silence couldn't hide. "I know I should be thanking you," Olivia began, standing in front of him. "The surgery, being at the hospital, all of it, but I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm exhausted, Liam." He nodded, waited. Let her speak. "You made choices for me, took control of my pain. You did everything right, everything noble. And still I feel suffocated. I tried not to pressure you," he said softly. "I just did what I thought was right." "But it was my life," she replied, voice cracking. "My desperation, my sister, my fight. And you stepped in like her savior. And now I feel small because of it. Like I owe you something, like everything that happened between us is tainted." Liam said nothing at first. For a second she thought he might pull away, but he didn't. It wasn't about being a hero, Olivia. It was about not being able to watch you suffer. And yeah, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I acted without asking. But it came from love. A messy, imperfect love, ain't but real. For the first time in my life, real. She looked away, her chest tightening. "I don't want love that's built on debt or gratitude. I want love that's free, and now I don't even know what that looks like anymore." "Then let me show you," he said, taking a step closer. "Not with money, not with favors, but with presence, with silence, with patience." "I can't promise you anything," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Neither can I," he replied with a half-smile. "But I can wait as long as it takes if it means one day you'll look at me without that hurt in your eyes." She inhaled sharply, her throat closed. "I'm going to pay for every cent of that surgery," she said firmly, "with work, with effort, with dignity, not because you asked, but because I need to remember who I am on my own. I never wanted to dim your light, Olivia. I only ever wanted to add to it." She walked toward the door, stopped, "And maybe one day I'll believe that." She left without looking back. But when she reached the sidewalk, the sky had started to cry. At first, just a few shy drops. Then a steady rain, washing away everything heavy on her shoulders. There she stood in the middle of the street, soaked, shivering, heart aching but soul still beating. And Olivia understood something. She didn't hate him. Far from it. But loving someone and sometimes meant walking away at the right time, so that if they found their way back to each other, it wouldn't be a repeat. It would be a beginning. Night had fallen over New York beneath a heavy sky, as if the whole world was about to cry. And in a way it was. For Olivia, every raindrop sliding down the diner's window carried a piece of the longing she tried to bury day after day. It had been 2 weeks since she stood at Liam's door. 2 weeks since she chose to walk away. 2 weeks of pain that hadn't lessened, only changed shape. She was washing her hands in the small sink at the back, trying to scrub off the smell of coffee, when Jenna called out, "Liv, there's a crazy guy out front and he's completely soaked." Olivia frowned, walked toward the dining area and froze. Liam was standing there, out on the sidewalk, no umbrella, hair plastered to his forehead, his hoodie drenched and clinging to him, eyes locked on the diner's window as if waiting for her to appear any second, and she did. From inside their eyes met, no words, just that kind of silence that says everything. He stepped forward without hesitation, and she ran to the door, say. Rain hit her like a cold avalanche, but her heart was far too warm to care. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice caught somewhere between disbelief and hope. "Trying not to give up," he answered, lips trembling. She looked at him for a second longer, and in that second, she saw it all. The pride he swallowed, the fear he carried, the courage he risked. "I didn't come to beg, or to guilt you, or to buy you," Liam said, stepping closer. I came because there's a part of me that only feels whole when you're near. The rain intensified, but they didn't move. I made mistakes too, Olivia said, eyes lowering. I thought I had to fix everything alone, that pushing you away was the only way to stay strong, but all I managed to do was miss you in a way I don't know how to hide anymore. Then don't hide it, he murmured, stepping even closer. What if it doesn't work? What if it does? She smiled, unintentionally, because she was crying too, and there was no way to tell what was rain and what were tears. There's no contract anymore, she said. No signature, he added, no made-up story, just us. They stood there, breathless, soaked to the bone, the noise of the city muffled by the storm and their pounding hearts. Then he touched her face. Not like the first time, when the world was watching. Not like the second, when pain still stood between them, but now like someone touching a yes. Can I kiss you? Olivia didn't answer. She simply leaned in, and the kiss came like the first ray of sun after a storm. No audience, no lie. No fear. When they pulled away, they both laughed softly. You look like a disaster, she said, laughing through sniffles. And you look beautiful, he replied, breathless. I'm completely soaked. Even better. I've always liked stories that start with a storm. She took his hand. Come on, I make the best hot chocolate in the city. Liar. It's not an art gallery, but it's still a beginning. They walked into the diner, not caring about the curious stares, because now the world could see. There was nothing left to hide. That night the rain kept falling over the city, but for them, inside that little place, the calm had finally begun. Months had passed since that night when the rain washed away what was left of pride and doubt between Olivia and Liam. There was no official announcement, no social media posts. They simply stayed, one day at a time, one step at a time. And maybe for the first time everything made sense without the need to rush. Olivia went back to school, studying business administration with a new sense of purpose. No longer just a young woman trying to survive, but one who knew exactly where she wanted to go. On weekends, between assignments and exams, she helped with the creative side of Carter Vineyards, designing wine labels, refreshing campaigns, and organizing events that carried more soul than style. Liam, in turn, seemed to finally breathe without his armor. He traded gala dinners for park picnics, learned how to make pancakes, terribly, but with love, donated too many suits, opened too many drawers, and started to like it. His once sleek apartment, all white steel and glass, now had her in every corner. A blanket tossed on the couch, paperback books lying around, plants crowding the windows. But the biggest change was the silence. It was lighter now, full of life. Sophia was recovering well. The doctors spoke of stability. She, excited, had started teaching yoga to children at a nearby public school. Still fragile some days, still a warrior on all of them. And for Olivia, seeing her sister smile again was the clearest sign. Everything had been worth it. Carmen Carter, the matriarch, took her time, watched from a distance, tested up close. But one random Sunday, over lunch, after trying a simple risotto Olivia had learned from YouTube, she spoke, without lifting her gaze. You have steady hands, and an even steadier heart. Liam needs both. And in that quiet remark came acceptance. The life they built wasn't made of cinematic moments, but of small, quiet rituals. Picking fruit at the market, arguing over who should wash the dishes, laughing at inside jokes only they understood. One night, curled up on the cramped couch of the small apartment they now shared part-time, Olivia opened a bottle of cheap wine, nothing rare, nothing vintage. Just a simple red bought at the corner shop. Funny, isn't it, she said, swirling the glass. We started with Dom Perignon, and now we're drinking this. Liam smiled, leaning into the cushion. This isn't the end, Liv. No. This, right here, this is the middle. It's when the lie became the truth, when the stage turned into a home. She looked at him, eyes slightly misty. Not from sadness, but from peace, from gratitude. Thank you, she said, resting her head on his shoulder. For what? For coming back, for staying, for not letting me run away from myself. He kissed the top of her head and whispered, "And thank you for letting me feel." For the first time. Without a script. The night continued quietly. An old song played, softly on the radio. The wind whispered outside, and through the window the headlights of the city that never sleeps passed by. But there, in that small, honest corner of the world, two souls slept in peace. Because in the end, what started as a lie turned into the most unexpected and beautiful kind of love, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. It simply stays. Maybe. The truest kind of love isn't the one that starts with the perfect look, but the one that survives chaos, pain, and even lies. Olivia and Liam proved that sometimes life has to break everything you thought you knew, just to show you that real love doesn't need a stage or rehearsed promises. It only needs two people willing to stay, even after everything. And you, have you ever lived a love that started all wrong, but changed you from the inside out? Could you forgive someone who helped you, but also hurt you? Do you believe a second chance can be more beautiful than the beginning? Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what part of this story moved you the most? If this story touched your soul, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like. It really helps us keep sharing stories that heal, inspire, and transform. And of course, share it with someone special who needs to believe that when love is real, it always finds its way back.